Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Nothing new. We're going to be going over the FX forecasting, some interesting indices, and also covering some of the crypto side of things. If you like the content, some of the positions last week were smashing it. So don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, comment, and subscribe if this is helping you with your trading journey. Let's get started. We're going to head over and look at euro against the US dollar to start with. Right, so we're looking at euro against the US dollar daily. We had quite a strong downwards move actually on euro against US dollar, which is what we was anticipating going into this week, which was quite nice. The previous week we mentioned that we was wrong on euro US dollar against it because we thought we saw that upwards move. But Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, we had the trend confirmed to the downside, and we expected to see price move lower. Actually, completely flat out dropped like a brick. It's actually taken out the previous low now, definitely confirmed downwards trend. I do expect us to see price come back up, retest that sort of 1.2 level, which is around here, before we actually see price come off and sell back down again. Again, we have that stable sort of resistance level that we need to watch going forward there. It's around 1.217, I would have said, where we saw price reject there multiple times with a big bearish pin bar before selling off. So technically, we're in quite a bearish market now on euro against the US dollar, which is an interesting point. Although I do expect to see some sort of buying coming in just a little bit as a pullback naturally occurs. So you have much here on euro US dollar on the 15 minutes, other than the market completely crashed. I mean, for those lovely range traders that you can see, a nice opportunity that presented itself yesterday. Nice solid range there that we could see, testing highs and lows with a confirmed break to the downside. Huge sell-off, and we're now actually trading on Friday in a range, and we could see price break out this to the upside, have that pullback to roughly 1.2 up here before we kind of see any sort of sell-off. So bear that in mind. We could see even higher retracement. But yeah, we are expecting at least some sort of buying to come into this week before we see the market continue to the downside. So that is a slam dunk. We were right on euro dollar to the short side, which is nice. Interestingly enough, with pound against the US dollar now. When we're looking at pound, we did see these two sellers days. We did say we don't expect to see too much selling before we see price going up. We actually saw quite a stagnant market and price moving sideways. I think a lot of that was to do with the anticipation and wait for the budget and further information there, but I will let Elliot discuss the fundamental side of it. But now we've got price testing with a test bar here. We've still got the 8 moving average above 21. We're still on an upwards trend. I'd like to see a little bit more confirmation on this on the Monday, to see a buyer's bar to come back in before I'm convinced that this is going to carry on going up. If I have Monday's completion of a nice buyer's bar coming into the back of this, I would like to be joining this move to the upside and profiting from further buys on pound against the US dollar. Now, when we jump down to the hourly time frame, we did a trade webinar actually when we saw a couple of these setups here with the price and the trade mate here. We did get a signal exit there, and the trend actually changed on the hourly time individuals to short and get out of those positions. We saw a strong resistance level here at this sort of 1.385 level. It was broken down, and we got a test off that 1.38 level. I'm expecting this now to gradually start to pull back up on the Monday. And again, I won't be touching this on Monday because I want to see that we are going to have buyers come back into this. Wait for the moving averages to cross over, and I will be looking to join price back to the upside. Levels that I am conscious of whilst I'm trading this week is looking at this 1.4 level. We can see the price was rejecting this 3 times over the period from roughly the 26th of February all the way up till the 4th of March. So it's had quite a few tests on this. This will be the major point that we see. And then obviously looking back at previous highs there, we're looking at 1.42 to the upside. So on pound, we are bullish, but we are waiting for Monday to close on the daily as a buyer's bar, just to give that extra confirmation that the buyers have come back into the market. So we are looking for that. US dollar against the Japanese yen. We absolutely slam dunked this one out of the park as well last week. We anticipated to have more buying coming into this, but interestingly enough, we did say we expect to have a small pullback before we see the rally continue. Well, we didn't get a pullback at all. We've just seen day after day of buying on US dollar against the Japanese yen, which is fantastic to know that we got the direction right. I don't think we've actually got the direction wrong on US dollar against the Japanese yen since the start of the year, which is great, because it has just been in a buyer's market ever since Biden got in. So we are now at that resistance level of roughly 108. That level there is holding at the moment on the Friday that we're talking about. I will not be buying into this now. You can see how there's been a strong price fluctuation of moving straight up here. So obviously, this is a big weekend for US dollar yen. You guys probably might have seen this by now. Obviously, we're recording this going into Friday's close, but obviously there's a lot of stimulus talks that's going into Biden's package. Elliot will talk about this a little bit more in a little bit as well, just to get a bit more clarity on this. But I won't be touching this at all. I definitely think that we could see a deep retracement here to sort of 106.4, 106.5, and before we see price continue to the upside, depending on what is said in those meetings with the stimulus package, we could see price moving quite choppy one way or the other. So at this moment, we have seen quite a large rally. So it looks like something's getting priced into the markets here, but definitely not something that I'm going to be touching. Be waiting for a pullback to join back into this upside rally, being cautious of that 108 level, and then also pretty much 109.7, which is this previous high all the way back in May/early June that we can see on the chart there. It's quite interesting because I think when we did our prediction of where we would end up this year on US dollar against the Japanese yen, I'm pretty sure I was talking about 108.5, and we're already there, and it's only coming into March. So it's very interesting to see how quick we managed to gain that ground on the US dollar against the Japanese yen. There has been some nice cluster signals to the upside. We have just pretty much seen the price just move up in a direct line. So we only had an entry early hours on today, on Friday, and you can see the cluster entry there where it was just above the UK pivot point, signaling to go for a long, and yeah, just pretty much went from there all the way up to just below R2, and yeah, we saw a bit of a retracement there. But this isn't something that I want to be buying into. As you can see, it's been quite a steep move. I'm expecting a pullback maybe to the UK pivot point with a slight sort of rally before we then get the overall pullback and sell-off. And don't forget, I anticipate price could pull all the way back to roughly down here 106.8 before I want to sort of join back in. So probably not going to be trading US dollar yen this week just because of the uncertainty around it and what could potentially happen this weekend. So it's definitely one to sit on our hands. So overall, just going through that, euro against the US dollar, we are looking for sells, but we are again waiting for a little bit of a rally because it's had such a hard drop. Pound US dollar probably looks like the most ready and waiting to be in play. We're just waiting for Monday to finish in a buyer's bar before we then look to join buys and continue on nice upwards move that we've been enjoying on pound against US dollar. So pretty much euro US dollar yen, we're kind of sat on our hands at this moment in time. Pound US dollar, we're just waiting for Monday. So you guys can take Monday off if you're trading the same way that I am, and just waiting for those setups to occur. Hope you enjoyed my technical analysis. Going to hand over to Elliot now, who's going to go over fundamentals and what's been happening this week.
Yeah, so it's been another volatile week. We start on in the indices market. So we saw, last Friday, we saw heavy selling, especially coming into the close. However, as we've seen so many times, well, feels like so many times this year already, panic selling dies over the weekend, and we see Monday morning Sunday night start of a rally. Again, this happened this week. However, the US indices didn't make fresh highs this week, and we saw selling come back in on Thursday afternoon. So this sort of tied in with Powell's speech. I think the market was sort of hopeful and starting to price in that Powell would start to rein in the sort of rise we've seen in longer term interest rates. So especially in the bond market, we've seen yields spike up, and when yields are spiking, we see equities sort of selling off. And then this is also tied in with the dollar strength we've seen that Sam's been speaking about this week. Obviously, dollar yen's going up, and both pound dollar and euro dollar going down. So the market was hopeful for this sort of Operation Twist, it's called, where the Fed have done it before. They sell short-term bonds and buy longer-term bonds to push down basically longer-term interest rates. However, Powell didn't say they were looking to do this, and they didn't really mention any sort of intervention. And they sort of saying that, some inflation is going to be normal as the economy starts to recover. And this caused quite a heavy sell-in Thursday afternoon going into the evening. We saw pretty much all the US indices break their previous lows from the last week. Quite heavy sell-in, and obviously the market is very worried about this sort of inflation coming back in, and that's why it's impacting sort of NASDAQ, for example, more than sort of other stocks, such as we see in FTSE and DAX. Obviously, that's why European markets have fared better than the US over the last couple of days, which makes a change than what we've seen previously. Today we had NFP. NFP came out 379, which is a lot better than expected. Was more of a surprise because earlier in the week we saw weak ADP employment numbers. So I think the market wasn't expecting this big NFP number that we saw. Initially, we saw US markets sell off on the back of this, equities sell off. And then we saw US dollar strength, and then we saw after that, over the next sort of half an hour, we saw dollar weakness come back in after that initial spike. Obviously, like we said, we recorded in Friday afternoon, so it's all sort of ongoing at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how this pans out into the evening. Will selling come back in the US market, and will dollar strength continue? Again, that was sort of Sam's play of waiting out and seeing what happens on Monday isn't such a bad idea. And then moving on to cable, obviously we continue to sell off on 1.42, and it's getting close to that 1.375 level we mentioned before. I think this is, at the moment, it's been mostly driven by the dollar strength. Obviously, we had the budget this week that we'll go into a bit more. But yeah, like I said, I think most of this move at the moment is being driven by this dollar strength, this reflation trade coming back into the market. It's also having a negative impact on the price of gold. As we see dollar strength coming in, gold continues to drop. Last Friday, we saw at around 1760. We said if it breaks through that level, we'll quickly see $1,700, and that's pretty much exactly what happened. This week, gold broke below 1760 and made its way back down to 1700 and actually went below it. At the time of film, it's around 1690. So yeah, gold's looks like it's going to continue to sell as long as we see dollar strength come back in, undoing that move that we saw last year. Again, Bitcoin, we spoke about last week. We said it hit new highs, 58,000, and then was pulling back sharply. It tested just below 45,000, but then we saw a strong bounce early in the week. However, again, it didn't make any new highs, and it's cooling off a bit now. It's around $47,000. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Again, I think if that goes back below that previous high of around $42,000, we could see more selling back towards the mid-30s. Oil prices, however, continue to rise. Crude is at $65 today. Again, so this is close to the highs back we saw back in Jan 2020. So completely erasing, those COVID. You go back and think what happened during the COVID era. It's crazy to think how much oil has recovered.
Because I remember when I bought oil at like $8-9.
Well, no, it's crazy.
I just sit there and think, imagine if I just held on to that. But I wouldn't have thought that we would have seen it reach these levels still, with like lockdowns still going on and things like that. But obviously, US has opened a lot quicker than we anticipated. But
yeah, and obviously, I think yesterday had OPEC plus. They decided to keep output unchanged, so obviously that's helped rally a bit more, but still, it's been absolutely, once it broke through like $42-43, it just, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, and then the final point, just update on the UK vaccine program. So it's 31.5% of the UK population have had their first dose and 16.3% in the US. So that's still sort of, moving along nicely.
I've seen some rumours as well. I don't know if you've seen anything about it, Elliot, about Israel's making it mandatory that everyone has to have it.
Yeah, well, they're well ahead of everyone, aren't they? Israel, like one of the, I think they've, yeah.
I think they're not far off being done, aren't they?
I haven't actually looked. I was looking at numbers before, but I haven't looked at it in a few weeks. Can't remember what percentage it was on, but yeah. So on Wednesday, we had the UK budget. Obviously, quite a big thing for the UK here, especially to see how the government plans to react to obviously what's going on with COVID and how they're going to then hit us with all these tax rises in the future because they've spent all this money. Quite a lot of points from the budget. Just picked out a few here. So they announced that basically going to spend over 400 billion on COVID support and recovery. Furloughs now been extended until the end of September, and they announced a few more self-employment grants. Furlough end of September, basically people have just been paid to do nothing for a year and a half, which is just madness, isn't it? Obviously people needed support, but they could have done something slightly better, maybe just made them work, do some like public service, fix all the potholes in the road or something. And then they've announced an additional 1.6 billion to be spent on the vaccination program. They've also announced 100 million to be spent on around 1,200 staff to hunt COVID fraudsters, people that have claimed furlough when they haven't actually been eligible for furlough and stuff like that. So that's going to be interesting. Can imagine quite a lot of companies and stuff are going to be done for that. It'd be interesting to see, what they do with that, how they act on that. Because I think a lot of the loans and stuff, the criteria you needed to apply for it and get a loan and a grant or whatever were quite loose. So it'd be interesting to see how they prove that sort of fraud went on. I guess with furlough, it's quite easy if you were actually still working when you shouldn't have been. In terms of the tax rises, I think the government went down the route of rather than raising taxes right now, they want to keep the public on their side. So instead, they just froze the allowances. So normally the allowances go up year on year in line with inflation, sometimes a bit more. However, income tax, capital gains tax, and inheritance tax allowances have all been frozen until 2026. So in real terms, they're going down. However, technically, they're just staying the same. It could have been a lot worse in that front. Didn't want higher rate income taxes going up, stuff like that. I think they would have lost a lot of voters, and that's why they approached it this side. They also announced an increase in corporation tax from 19% to 25% in 2023. However, this is only going to affect the larger profitable firms. I believe they said that it's going to only affect about 10% of companies that will actually have to pay the 25%. If your company doesn't have profit of more than 250,000 a year, there's like a step ladder up to that level. They also froze duties on alcohol and cigarettes, which I don't know
so why. Weird.
Yeah, bit of an odd one. Prolonged, increased the fuel duty freeze period, and then they've also announced 12 billion for a UK infrastructure bank, which is quite an interesting one, quite a good one. I think it's definitely needed more investment in the infrastructure in the UK, especially the broadband speeds we get here are atrocious, the railway lines, stuff like that. I think that's definitely a good one they announced. So Dow this week, as we mentioned earlier, obviously we had that big sell-off on Friday, and then we saw Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday sort of the recovery, and then it sort of went sideways. Didn't see any new highs made. It was tickling the previous highs on Dow, and then we saw the sharp sell-in on Thursday afternoon after Powell's speech. However, sort of Friday we saw the NFP numbers, and that sort of sparked a bit of a recovery in the US market. So it'll be interesting to see how Friday evening unfolds, whether that recovery is sustained, and I think that'll lead into sort of the momentum we see into next week. If we do sell back off from here, I think it's going to be tricky to see the market rally on Monday. However, at the moment, the dips getting bought is very profitable way to trade the market at the moment. However, it feels like bulls are sort of running out of steam, but I believe if they do make another recovery today, I think next week we'll see potentially new highs made in the market. If we look at the FTSE, Obviously, the range that's been established for a while now is between 6,550 and 6,700. We've also seen a lot of bounces off that 650 level. Again, this week, if we go forward to the next slide, it's been pretty much the same story. We saw on Friday it broke below 6,550. However, it went down to that 6,500 level, 6,490 we have on the chart at the bottom. So yeah, we saw that last Friday. However, that was a quick bounce off that level, and then we saw again that 6,550 once it's broken through, tested a couple of times, and it rallied back up to 6,650. Again, it tested 6,700 early in the week, came back off that, and it's just been rebounding off those two levels pretty much. And again, Friday we've seen strength come back in after the NFPs, and it's again testing that 6,700 level. I think that's the sort of key level we need to see break for the FTSE, and then hopefully that could take us back towards the yearly highs, and then hopefully above that back towards 7,000 level. Upcoming next week, again, we just want to see how Friday evening pans out and any more news on this reflation trade. Got US CPI due out next week, so definitely keep an eye out on that one next Wednesday. Sam mentioned earlier in the video, we've got the Senate deliberating Biden's relief package for this 1.9 trillion stimulus. This got voted to be discussed. So basically 50-50 split, Democrats, Republican, and obviously the VP takes that final vote. So they'll be discussing that over the weekend. Republicans want to see some changes, amendments to that bill to satisfy them and their voters, obviously. So basically Democrats, in order to get that through how Biden wants it, all the Democrats are going to have to vote all of it through and reject the Senate, the Republicans' amendments. So that's definitely should be done by Sunday. They keep coming out saying it's going to be done this week, it's going to be done this week, because the Americans need their money. That's an interesting one to see how that pans out. And if that isn't resolved by Sunday, what comes out early Monday morning in the US, so sort of early Monday afternoon in the UK. Again, why Sam's saying sort of sit on the sidelines till we see some clarity around that and then see how the market reacts to that. Next week, we've also got yen GDP Monday evening, Euro GDP next Tuesday, and then US CPI on Wednesday, and the Bank of Canada interest rate decision. And then we've got ECB interest rate decision on Thursday, and their monetary policy statement, again, one to look out for. So quite a lot happening next week. And yeah, early towards the week should give us some more clarity on whether this US dollar strength is here to stay.
A lot to keep an eye on, guys, for this week, but overall should be interesting. But again, like I said, we're on the sidelines there on that euro dollar, also on the sidelines waiting for US dollar yen, and also to kind of review all the information that we've seen from the Senate voting and talking about the relief package with Biden, and see exactly what that comes out. So guys, be careful trading this week. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure you thumbs up, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. We've got a really interesting video coming next week. Looking forward to sharing some awesome news with you guys.